There is, according to the fourth way system, a place within us. You can think of it as a place in a deeper dimension of our being that is perfectly quiet and perfectly still and perfectly at rest. And this Peter Uspensky, who was the protege of George Gurdjieff, the founder of the man who brought the fourth way system to the Western world, called this the quiet place within. And as he said, there is a place in you where you are quiet, calm, and nothing can disturb you. This quiet place is not a metaphor. It is a very real thing. And this quiet place within is also what the fourth way is referring to with the idea of self-remembering. To remember oneself is really for the consciousness or the awareness that resides in this quiet place, as this quiet place recognizes itself, realizes itself. It doesn't remember itself in the manner of like a memory, recalling a memory. It's realizing, recognizing the being of itself. But normally, for most human beings, awareness is always leaving this quiet place. It's like leaving home, leaving the house. And because of what the fourth way also describes as identification, or what is called attachment in the East, awareness is constantly being lured out of the house and pulled out of the house. And it goes running out of the front door repeatedly. And it goes running down the street, chasing a thought or an emotion or a sensation, or a self-preoccupation with another person or an event. Or it goes chasing after an opinion it has. It goes chasing after wanting to be approved of. There are many different psychological ways and physiological ways that awareness gets drawn out of this house, this quiet place within, running out into the street, runs all the way across town, sometimes gets 20 miles outside of town to discover that it had, suddenly now it realizes it left home. It's left the quiet place. In fourth way terminology, you realize that you have not been remembering yourself. You have not been the self-realization of conscious awareness. And so now it's a matter of going back home, coming back home. And when this happens, when we are 20 miles outside of town or even just down the street, and we suddenly realize we had not been remembering ourselves, it's a form of realization that comes after the fact. But right in that moment when we remember ourselves and we become aware, that's a taste of what it's like at home. But it's just a taste initially. And the fourth way work involves finding our way back home, awareness going back home. And this is just one side of it. And this is, as I say, after the fact. We realize after the fact we have been identified. And so we come home. There's another way to approach self-remembering or to understand this idea of awareness staying home. And that is to come in through the back door of the house. And the back door of the house is where you're not yet identified. So you come in, awareness comes in, is not identified, sits down at the kitchen table or sits in the living room and settles in and stays at home. And when this happens, it becomes much more obvious when the urge, the impulse to go running out the front door and chasing after something, a thought, a sensation, an activity. It becomes much more obvious when those impulses and urges try to lure awareness out of the house and down the street through the front door. And so this is a form of self-remembering before the fact of identification. So it's possible to view this as in two ways: as how awareness runs out of the front door, realizes at some point at a distance from the house, from the being of itself. It's now gotten tangled up in the world, in the psychological world or the phenomenal world, the external world of our life, and has to retrace its steps. Or it can come in from the back door. And really the back door, if you were to walk out of the back door of this quiet place, you would be heading into the woods, heading into the unknown realm of the source of awareness. And that's why when our consciousness, our awareness is coming, you could say, from the source through the back door and settling in the quiet place, where, as Uspensky said, we're quiet and calm and nothing can disturb us, then this establishes this flavor, this knowingness of presence, of being, of conscious awareness. And then as that gets more established, it gets less, it takes the bait less often from identification, gets lured less often, it's less tempted, because awareness, you could say, understands what's going on now and knows it does not want to go tumbling down the street and out of town in different forms of identification. So we can think of this as staying at home in the quiet place within.